Hey everybody, Brad from RotoHeat.com back at it with our top 10 series. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 breakout running backs based on the RotoHeat.com team. If you haven't checked out any of our other top 10 series or our rookie content or our mock draft content over on YouTube, make sure you go check it out. Like, subscribe so that you can keep up to date with all the great fantasy content from the RotoHeat.com team. Number 1, Jonathan Taylor, running back, Indianapolis Colts. It's pretty easy to see that with Marlon Mack's contract coming to an end sooner rather than later, Nyheim Hines not really developing, and them not really having much after that. Jordan Wilkins and they had Jonathan Williams even last year play a little bit. I mean, Taylor should be able to climb that depth chart with his talent and his overall skill set. You could easily see him being in, kind of the high-end RB2, low-end RB1 category by season's end, depending on how things go. That offense is high-powered. They're really swinging for the fences, signing Phillip Rivers. They have T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell, and they drafted Michael Pittman, and obviously Doyle at tight end. I mean, they got a lot of pieces, and Taylor should have plenty of opportunities to be successful in with rushing and receiving. Great all-purpose back, and will easily be in the RB1 category by this time next year. Number 2, David Montgomery, running back, Chicago Bears. The thing I think the community forgets as a whole is that he quietly had 1,000 yards last year. I know that things weren't great in Chicago, and that offense and that team as a whole was really rough. And even Montgomery, I think he only had about 3.7 yards a carry on like 240 plus rushing attempts. But it wasn't all his fault. Some of it was, some of it wasn't. Growing, developing running back, he will continue to grow. Trey Cohen's going to get some of that PPR action, so the receptions may not be as high. The cap may be there with Cohen still on the roster because Cohen is a very talented running back, but Montgomery's great. He's a really good running back, and I have him in a few spots, and I'm not selling him for cheap. I still want high value if somebody really wants him from me, because he's a talented running back. He's got good power, and he's going to grow and develop, and he's going to get higher than the 3.7 yards per carry this season. They've done some things to try to improve the team around him. Obviously adding a hopefully more proficient quarterback should help take some of the work off of him and maybe back the defenders up a little bit so it isn't stacking the boxes and him having to fight. But Montgomery, the sky's the limit. I could easily see him be in the back end of the RB1 category even as soon as this year, depending on how things go for him. Number 3, Cam Akers, running back, Los Angeles Rams. This is kind of when I was looking at the team's consensus rankings, I was like, well, yeah, I guess you could easily see that. The question you have to ask yourself, and the question you have to answer in this situation is, are you a Darrell Henderson guy? Are you a guy that thinks Akers is just going to kind of walk into that job? They'll probably split the carries, because Henderson at least has a year under his belt. But Akers is a better all-around back. He's got a better skill set. He's been able to make a lot with a little, especially looking at his college career. There was no offense around him, and he made multiple 1,000-yard campaigns, and he's a good all-purpose back. So we can easily see why everybody thinks that he's going to break out this year. If he doesn't break out this year, it's because of everything going on with the pandemic and rookies taking a little bit of time getting up to speed. But he's got the skill set to be a breakout running back. If not now, soon. Number 4, Kenyan Drake, running back, Arizona Cardinals. Now, obviously, last year was kind of a whirlwind for him going from Miami to Arizona. But in his time in Arizona, he produced. He only had 8 games there, but he was really dynamic in that offense. It was almost a perfect fit for him, and you can tell that they're sold on him as well. In the offseason, they traded David Johnson away. Now, obviously, they still have Chase Edmonds, who will see some action. Drake's going to need to be given some breaks here and there throughout the game, and Edmonds will get a little bit of action, but sky's the limit. Drake is an RB1, easily an RB1 this year with the way things are looking. So Drake is one of those guys that we see as a breakout, and if you haven't already, try to get him. If you can get a share at a reasonable price, he is a great target this offseason. Number 5, without surprise, Clyde EdwardsHelaire, running back, Kansas City Chiefs. First running back taken in the draft. goes into, a running back's dream spot with the Chiefs and that high-powered offense, and Andy Reid, who loves to make running backs successful. He's made something out of Damian Williams, and obviously Darwin Thompson's been a thing, and Darrell Williams is a little bit been a thing there in Kansas City. So EdwardsHelaire is easily more dynamic and a better runner than all of the other running backs on that roster. So he has a very easy shot to becoming a breakout candidate this year. With the way that offense is built, he fits perfectly in with what they want to do. I've heard folks say kind of the Westbrook 2.0 for Andy Reid, but he's the CEH 1.0. He's very dynamic, good pass catcher. He can do all the things you want to do, and he's a powerful runner. So EdwardsHelaire should easily have a breakout season and be one of those backs that has a really nice career. Number 6, J.K. Dobbins, running back, Baltimore Ravens. This one will be one of those. It's going to be interesting to see how they deploy these running backs. Obviously Baltimore's another one of those really dynamic offenses, really kind of ground and pound with Ingram and Gus Edwards, and they've got Lamar Jackson, and there's so many different options there. And we haven't even mentioned Justice Hill, which is the guy they drafted last year and liked. There's a ton of running backs. So this would be the one on the list as I kind of look through who we had. This one and the one after are kind of the two where I'm like, I could see they could break out, or I could see where they're just kind of hampered by their situation or injuries or things like that. So Dobbins' skill set and his talent is what got him to this place on our breakout candidates list, because he's the most dynamic of the guys that are in that backfield. Ingram is aging. I would think they would want to keep him healthy because they'll need that veteran leadership come playoff times. But for fantasy purposes, Dobbins, the sky's the limit. He's probably more like a kind of mid RB2 this season, but has potential to blow up because his skill set and his dynamic playmaking ability is off the charts. Number 7, Darius Geis, running back, Washington Redskins. This one will forever be kind of the breakout candidate because he's got such a talent and such a good skill set to be an RB1 kind of player, but injuries are just killing him. We need to see him bounce back. Obviously, we're cautiously optimistic. We don't ever want to believe a guy can't get over that injury bug. But if Geis can't, we're going to find out real quickly. Rivera loves to run the ball, so Geis has all the opportunity in the world to be very successful and get a ton of fantasy production this year. But they have other running backs. They've drafted this year. They drafted last year. They've got Geis. They've got AP. I mean, it'll be interesting to see kind of how this offense continues to develop under Rivera and a new coaching staff. But there's chance for success for Geis if he can stay healthy. Number 8, Keyshawn Vaughn, running back, Tampa Bay Bucks. This is one of those that pre-draft and pre-going to the Bucks, folks liked Vaughn. Very similar to Akers, where he produced at a high level with not a lot around him, but he did in the SEC. So there's something to be said about that. With Vaughn going to Tampa, that's a great spot. I mean, obviously they got rid of Peyton Barber and his 150 plus rushing attempts and probably 20 to 30, 40 targets. So you can easily see a clear path to where he can get you, 150 to 200 rushing attempts because Ronald Jones isn't a great runner. He's very dynamic with the ball in his hands kind of in the open field, but a running back, a pure running back and not the pass catcher of the combination, that's a more Keyshawn Vaughn type role. Now, Vaughn is a really good pass catcher as well, so I'll be interested to see how they deploy these two backs. I like Rojo. Last year still had 1,000 yards, but with Vaughn coming to town, I think 1,000 is kind of the hopeful if you're the Rojo owner. I think it's probably more Keyshawn Vaughn getting over the 1,000-yard mark this year, depending on how this offense goes. I mean, because ultimately the thing you have to think about is there's a ton of mouths to feed. All those receivers, multiple talented tight ends, multiple running backs. I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed. PPR action could still go to Rojo for now, just because he's been in the offense for a year. As Vaughn picks up things, Vaughn, he could just be used as kind of the power runner and between the tackles guy. But we have to see. I mean, either way, Vaughn is still kind of a first-round rookie pick in most cases, depending on the league makeup and things like that. So Vaughn is a guy that we see as a breakout candidate. could easily be, a weekly starter as early as, the beginning of the season, depending on how things go and how quickly he picks up that offense. Number 9, Devin Singletary, running back, Buffalo Bills. This one really should be no-brainer, and he probably should have been higher on our list. Gore's gone, so there's 150 plus rushing attempts. They brought in Zach Moss, but really Zach Moss is not dynamic as runner as Devin Singletary is. So Moss could be kind of your thumper, your big back, power back, but you could easily see Singletary get another 50 plus rushing attempts, and maybe they give 75 to 100 of what Gore was doing to Moss. But you got to remember, Josh Allen's going to get some rushes. They're going to let him use his athletic ability outside of the pocket. So we see Singletary as kind of the guy there because he's a really good with the ball in his hands, whether he's running between the tackles or he's getting passes out of the backfield. So definitely Singletary is the guy at the target there, and we can see him be in the conversation for back end RB1 status as early as this year. Last but not least is kind of one that'll be a little bit of a surprise to folks, but newly acquired Miami Dolphins running back Matt Breida. The interesting thing about Breida is he's had some really up and down seasons and even weeks there in San Francisco. There was a spell there where he was a really good PPR back for you. He went to a perfect spot. Jordan Howard is a very good running back, not the best receiver. Breida is a really good receiver out of the backfield. So that's their 1-2 punch. With as dynamic as this offense could be, as they've added a lot of really nice pieces in the draft and free agency, Breida could easily be in the conversation as a solid RB2, which is very much a breakout conversation in our minds, because that's a guy that you're going to be able to start on a regular basis and see some really good value from, especially from all that PPR action. So that is our top 10. Make sure you keep it locked in here to rotoheat.com for all of our other top 10 conversations, whether it's about our top 10 quarterbacks and wide receivers, tight ends. We've got you covered for all the fantasy content you could want. And don't forget to check out rotoheat.com for all your up-to-date fantasy information.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it. You want to. Do it.